When the council watched humans drop their polite restraint, the galaxy was a quiet place for most species. Worlds floated in the darkness, busy with their own problems, their own empires, and their own wars. Among these species, humans were a small and curious presence. They were known to be polite, careful, and above all, patient. The Galactic Council, a body made up of representatives from hundreds of advanced worlds, watched humans with mild interest. They spoke softly of human strengths, but mostly of human weaknesses. To the Council, humans were fragile, slow to anger, and easy to underestimate. John Carter, the human ambassador, walked down the long, bright corridors of the Council Hall. The walls shimmered with a light that seemed alive, moving slightly as if breathing. John adjusted his tie and straightened his jacket. He was young, maybe too young for a place as important as this, but his confidence carried him forward. Behind him, Lisa Morrow, a cultural liaison, carried a small stack of reports. She smiled faintly, trying not to show her nerves. "Do you think they take us seriously?" John asked quietly. "They don't," Lisa replied, keeping her voice low. "Not yet, but that doesn't mean we fail. We just have to keep proving ourselves." The council chamber was enormous. Triangular tables floated above the ground, each occupied by a different species. Some were tall and thin, their bodies glinting like crystal. Others were short and squat, with rough skin and many arms. There were creatures with fur, scales, even some that seemed like living clouds of gas. They all watched the humans with curious, polite expressions. John and Lisa walked to the human section, a simple platform with 2 chairs and a small holographic display. Unlike most species, humans did not require huge, complex environments. They needed only simple comforts and a clear mind. John sat and arranged his papers carefully while Lisa set up the display. The session began. A deep, resonant voice filled the hall. "Ambassador Carter, please present the human report on the ongoing border incidents." John cleared his throat. "Honorable members of the Council, over the past 3 cycles, human colonies along the Varan sector have experienced repeated attacks. These attacks target civilian trade routes and supply stations. While the losses are not large, they are consistent and deliberate. We request Council action to address these violations." There was a pause. The Council members whispered to each other, their voices like rustling leaves. A few tilted their heads at John, as if studying a strange creature. One of the council elders, a tall being with translucent skin and luminous veins, finally spoke. "Ambassador Carter, your species is known for its diplomacy. Why do you not simply negotiate directly with the Varan Council?" John chose his words carefully. "We have attempted direct negotiation. Every attempt has been met with deception, delay, or outright refusal to communicate. Humanity values diplomacy. We do not seek war, but continued attacks on our colonies cannot go unanswered." There was another pause. From the far side of the chamber, a small, amphibian-like representative spoke in a voice like dripping water. "You speak with such civility. Why escalate matters when your species is clearly fragile?" Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She could see John suppress a frown. They had expected skepticism, but this was sharper than usual. John smiled politely, leaning forward. "Because civility should not be mistaken for weakness. Humans have patience. We wait. We negotiate, but we also act when necessary. Our restraint is deliberate, not a limitation." Some council members murmured. Others raised thin, curious appendages. None of them had truly expected humans to answer so calmly, so firmly. After the session, John and Lisa returned to the human quarters. The room was small, furnished simply with chairs, a table, and a few screens. Lisa dropped into a chair. "They still think we're weak," she said quietly. John nodded. "That's the advantage. They underestimate us, but they'll see, eventually." Outside, the galaxy stretched in endless darkness. Ships moved like tiny sparks along the trade routes. Planets rotated slowly, oblivious to the politics of their distant stars. Human colonies on the Varan sector glowed dimly, each light a reminder of the people who lived there. People who worked, laughed, and worried about their futures. Captain Alex Ramirez checked his fleet reports from the command deck of the human cruiser, Horizon. The fleet was small but capable. Each ship carried trained crews and carefully developed weapons. Ramirez was a veteran of border patrols, used to dealing with smugglers, pirates, and occasional hostile neighbors. Still, he could feel tension in the air. "Another attack near Loran Station," his communications officer reported. Civilian freighters damaged, minimal casualties. Ramirez clenched his jaw. Again, how many times do we have to warn them? The officer shook his head. They ignore it. It's like they're testing us. On the colony world of Varen, Emma Brooks, an analyst working for the Human Administration, studied incoming reports. She noted the frequency of attacks, the methods used, and the patterns of the Varen raiders. Emma had grown up on a human colony herself, and the thought of violence against her people made her stomach twist. But she also admired the calm way humans managed to respond to these attacks. "We have to stay patient," she muttered to herself. "We can't lose control, not yet." Back in the council, the discussion continued. Other species debated whether humans were overreacting or simply naive. Some suggested ignoring the humans, others recommended more oversight. None of them truly understood the human way of thinking. Humans measured time differently, valued patience, and believed that restraint was a form of strength. John and Lisa knew this. It was why they continued to approach the council with calm words, clear data, and unwavering composure. Every smile, every measured sentence was a demonstration of a deeper human philosophy. That violence was not the first step, but neither was it impossible. That evening, in a small mess hall aboard the human council ship, John and Lisa ate quietly. The hum of the ship surrounded them, a soft vibration under the floor. "Do you ever wonder if they'll ever understand us?" Lisa asked. John took a slow sip of water. "Some of them might, some will never understand, but we don't need their understanding to survive. We just need their attention." Outside, stars glimmered in silence. Somewhere a freighter navigated the dangerous border. Somewhere else the Varen raiders planned their next move. And somewhere in the council chamber, representatives debated, unaware of the patience that humans had mastered over thousands of years. Humans were polite. Humans were careful. But above all, humans waited. And sometimes waiting was the most powerful weapon of all. The next cycle would bring new reports, new complaints, and new debates. The council would continue to underestimate the humans, and John Carter, Lisa Morrow, and every human on the frontier would continue to watch, record, and wait, because patience was a choice. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, humans were choosing it every day. The stars did not move faster for humans. Ships still traveled at the same speed. And yet, in the small, unnoticed corners of the universe, humans quietly proved something powerful, that even the most polite, careful species could endure what others could not. The attacks on human colonies were growing more frequent. Ships vanished from trade lanes without warning. Small settlements reported damage to their structures, and some freighters returned with broken hulls and terrified crews. Despite the growing chaos, the humans maintained their calm, keeping careful logs and submitting reports to the council. Every action was measured, every word polite. Captain Alex Ramirez leaned over the navigation console on the bridge of the cruiser Horizon. His hands moved quickly, tapping commands to track ship movements along the border. "Another freighter lost near Terran Station," he said, his voice low but tense. "It's the same raiders again. They're getting bolder." The communications officer, a young man named Kevin Hill, frowned. "The council still hasn't acted. They keep saying we should try more diplomacy." Ramirez shook his head. "They don't understand. This isn't about words anymore. They're testing us, and every time we respond politely, they take it as weakness." Below the command deck, analyst Emma Brooks studied the latest data feeds. Her screens were filled with maps, ship logs, and security reports. She tapped a few buttons, overlaying attack patterns on colony locations. It was clear. The raiders were methodical. They struck where humans were vulnerable, then retreated before anyone could respond. "They're learning from us," Emma said quietly. "Every attack is designed to test how far we'll go without breaking our rules." Lieutenant Jason Miller, standing nearby, looked at her with concern. "Are we just going to let them keep doing this? How long before someone gets killed?" Emma nodded. "We record everything. Every loss is a signal. One day the council will notice, and when they do, we'll be ready. But right now, we hold. We don't overreact." In the council chambers, the other species continued to underestimate humans. During the latest session, Ambassador John Carter presented a detailed report of the border incidents. He listed each attack, each damaged vessel, and each ignored diplomatic request. He spoke with calm authority, making it clear humans did not exaggerate or act out of emotion. A council member from the Trelion system, a long, thin creature with multiple eyes, leaned forward. Your species claims repeated attacks, yet you do not retaliate directly. Why not? John smiled politely. Because diplomacy and patience have value. Humans are capable of responding, but we also understand restraint. We do not escalate unless necessary. That is not weakness, it is choice. The council murmured among themselves. Some looked skeptical, others seemed curious. Few understood that patience could be a weapon, a way to endure, study, and prepare. Back on the border, life continued under the shadow of fear. Human settlers worked in silence, repairing buildings, fortifying defenses, and caring for their families. Every person had learned the value of caution. Even children understood that sudden violence could strike without warning. Lisa Morrow walked among the settlement of Varen Station, checking reports from local administrators. She watched workers rebuild a damaged dock. The humans she met nodded respectfully, offering polite smiles. There was no panic, no loud complaints, only quiet determination. One worker, a man named Daniel Pierce, spoke softly. "Do they ever get tired of attacking us?" Lisa shook her head. "I don't know. But humans are stronger than they seem. We endure, we watch, and when the time comes, we will respond in our way." Meanwhile, Captain Ramirez organized patrols along the trade lanes. He assigned crews to vulnerable sectors, making sure no shipment traveled unprotected. Despite the careful planning, the raids continued, each more daring than the last. "Another one hit near Carrick Outpost," a crew member reported. "No lives lost, but the damage is severe." Ramirez clenched his fists. "They're trying to provoke a reaction. They want to see humans break their restraint. We won't give them that satisfaction." In the council, debate raged. Some species argued that humans were naive, too polite to survive in the harsh galaxy. Others warned that patience could mask hidden strength. Still, few could see the full picture. "Humans act like lambs," one council member said dismissively. "They will not fight unless forced. It is simple." John Carter replied calmly. "That is an assumption. Humans have fought, and we will fight if required. Our civility is not ignorance. It is a strategy. We do not strike without cause, but we also do not yield when our people are threatened." Back at the human colony, Emma Brooks received a report about civilian casualties. She held the tablet tightly, her knuckles white. The loss was small, but it was personal. Families had been affected. Children had been frightened. She exhaled slowly. "It's getting worse. They are learning too much about how far they can go." Lisa approached her. "And we will respond, not yet, but soon." Patience is not weakness, it is preparation. Captain Ramirez convened his officers. Maps were spread across the table, pins marking recent attacks. "We know their patterns, we know their tactics. We wait, we observe, and we respond with precision when the time is right. No reckless moves, no uncontrolled anger. We act as humans always have, careful, deliberate, and strong." The council continued to underestimate them. Some members even suggested that humans would eventually fail, that their patience would break under pressure. But every human knew something the council could not see. Restraint was not passivity, it was power held in reserve. At night, the stars above the colonies shone cold and distant. Human families looked up at them, wondering what lay beyond. Ships moved silently along trade routes, some of them carrying supplies, others carrying watchers, listening for the faintest hint of trouble. Emma and Lisa stood together on the observation deck of the horizon. The galaxy stretched out, dark and endless. "Do they really believe we are weak?" Emma asked quietly. Lisa shook her head. "Yes, they always do, but that is their mistake. Every attack we endure teaches us. Every insult, every raid, every small loss, it prepares us." Captain Ramirez joined them. "They want us to lose control. They want us to break, but patience is a choice, and humans are very good at choosing." Meanwhile, the Varen raiders planned their next moves. They had noticed that humans never struck back immediately. They assumed humans feared violence. They assumed that politeness was weakness. Every time they struck, they tested boundaries, learning how far they could push. What they did not understand was that humans measured differently. Humans counted time in generations, in cycles, in careful observation. They remembered every wrong, calculated every risk, and prepared for the moment when restraint would no longer be necessary. In the council chamber, debate grew louder. "They do nothing while attacks continue," one representative shouted. "Perhaps that is the point," another said softly. "Perhaps they are not doing nothing." John Carter stood quietly, listening. He did not respond immediately. He had learned the value of silence. Every word, every gesture, every report was part of a larger plan. He watched the council, noting reactions, noting assumptions. Patience, he thought, was invisible. Power could be hidden in civility. And one day, the council and the galaxy would see humans for what they truly were. The attacks continued. Ships vanished. Colonies were damaged. Trade lanes were disrupted. And still, humans endured. They recorded every incident, documented every loss, and watched for patterns. Captain Ramirez walked along the deck of the Horizon, inspecting crew members. "We are ready," he said quietly. "We wait for the moment when restraint is no longer an option. Until then, we survive, we endure, and we learn." At Varen Station, families gathered in the safety of reinforced buildings. Children asked questions. Parents offered calm answers. Human society thrived even under pressure. Emma Brooks wrote a report late into the night. Every attack, every casualty, every detail was recorded. She understood the importance of these records. They were not just proof for the council. They were preparation for the day when humans would act decisively. In the council, debate continued. Some began to question whether human patience was foolish or dangerous. Some began to whisper that humans were not as weak as they seemed. John Carter smiled quietly to himself. Let them underestimate. Let them assume. It made the moment when humans would reveal their true strength even more powerful. The galaxy continued to turn. Stars moved, ships traveled, and the council debated. But in the shadows, humans observed, learned, and endured. Every raid, every loss, every insult added to their knowledge. Every moment of patience was a moment of preparation. And humans were very good at preparation. The galaxy had grown quiet for a moment, but tension hovered like a storm waiting to break. The council continued their usual debates, assuming humans would always hold their patience. Yet humans had reached a limit. Years of attacks on colonies, trade routes, and civilian ships had built a quiet anger behind their calm faces. Every loss had been noted, every insult remembered. Now, the time to act was near. On the human cruiser Horizon, Captain Alex Ramirez stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic maps of the Varen sector. The lines of attack, the locations of colonies, and the recent raider movements were displayed in sharp, clear detail. Every ship and every freighter that had been lost or damaged had been recorded. Every small attack had been logged and analyzed. "Captain," Lieutenant Jason Miller said, approaching him, "the council is meeting today. They expect another report from Ambassador Carter." Ramirez's eyes didn't leave the map. "They will get the report, but this time it won't be just words." Down on the council station, Ambassador John Carter prepared for the session. He adjusted his jacket, straightened his tie, and went over the records one last time. He had always spoken politely to the council, presenting facts clearly and calmly. But today, something in his tone would be different. Lisa Morrow joined him, carrying the reports. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly. John nodded. "We've waited, we've watched. They think we are weak. Today they will see that patience does not mean fear." The council chamber was as vast as ever. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the floating tables. Some looked curious, others looked skeptical. A few, the more cautious species, looked uneasy. They had not expected humans to ever act beyond polite diplomacy. The session began. The council chair, a massive creature with 3 faces and glowing eyes, called for the human report. John Carter stepped forward. "Honorable members of the council, I bring you the latest report on the attacks against human colonies in the Varen sector. Over the last 3 cycles, our colonies have faced repeated raids. These attacks target civilians, trade routes, and supply stations. Diplomacy has failed, warnings have been ignored, and patience, which we have exercised for generations, has reached its limit." A few council members shifted in their seats. Some whispered to one another. The amphibian-like delegate from the previous session spoke again. "Are you threatening retaliation?" it asked, its voice soft, almost mocking. John's voice remained calm but firm. "We are not threatening, we are stating fact. Humanity has waited, has measured, and has restrained. But restraint is not weakness, it is choice. And that choice ends now." The chamber went quiet, the air seemed to thicken. A few delegates looked alarmed, some leaned back in their seats, unsure if they had heard correctly. John activated the holographic display behind him. Images of damaged colonies, broken ships, and frightened civilians appeared for all to see. Every incident was documented, every loss accounted for. There was no exaggeration, no dramatization, just facts. This, John continued, is what happens when our restraint is ignored. And this is only the beginning. Humanity will respond decisively and without hesitation to any further attacks on our people. Outside the chamber, the human fleet prepared. Captain Ramirez gave final orders. Ships hummed with energy, shields tested, weapons armed, and crews ready. The humans were calm, but every person on board knew their duty. They had been patient for years, enduring insults and attacks without retaliation. But now they had a clear target, a mission, and the full support of their people. "Fire teams ready," Ramirez said. "Deploy to Varen's sector. Move fast, precise, and controlled. We are not here to destroy without reason. We are here to protect." Back in the council chamber, some members began to murmur. A few were shocked. They had assumed human patience would continue forever. They had assumed humans would never respond to aggression with force. But the words, calm and deliberate, left no room for doubt. The first reports came quickly. Human ships engaged the raiders in the Varen sector, but unlike before, the humans did not wait for permission. They acted with speed and precision. Raiders were intercepted and neutralized. Civilian ships were escorted to safety. Supply lines were restored. The humans moved with the efficiency of a species that had studied every attack, remembered every loss, and learned every lesson. Council members watched in disbelief. The humans they had dismissed as polite and weak were suddenly a force to be reckoned with. The raiders had underestimated the patience of humanity. They had assumed politeness was fear. Now they learned it was preparation. Captain Ramirez coordinated every attack. Every strike was precise. No human ship was lost, no civilian harmed. The raiders were caught off guard, unable to anticipate the sudden strength of their target. Each raider ship taken down was a warning, a demonstration that human patience had limits. Back in the council chamber, whispers grew louder. "They act with purpose," one delegate said. "They planned this all along." "They were always patient," another replied. "We just never realized how dangerous that patience could be." John Carter stood tall, his calm demeanor unchanged. "We do not seek war," he said. "We seek protection for our people. We have acted only because our warnings were ignored. Humanity values life, and we will not destroy unnecessarily. But we will not allow our people to be harmed while we wait politely." Lisa Mora watched the holographic displays from the side. Human actions were clear. They were powerful but controlled. Every movement was deliberate, every decision calculated. She felt a quiet pride in the species she had grown up with. The Varen raiders, stunned by the sudden and overwhelming human response, attempted to retreat. But the humans anticipated every move. Patrols intercepted escape routes, and boarding teams neutralized remaining threats. By the end of the day, the Varen sector was secure. Human colonies were protected, and the raiders had learned that politeness did not mean passivity. In the council chamber, silence fell. The other species stared at the humans. No one spoke. They had underestimated humanity for too long, and now they were witnessing the consequences. John Carter addressed the council one final time. "Let this be a reminder, patience is not weakness, civility is not fear. Humans endure, humans observe, and humans act when necessary. We will always choose peace when we can, but we will never allow harm to continue unchallenged." The chamber remained quiet. Some delegates were shaken, others thoughtful. A few scribbled notes, reconsidering their assumptions about the small, polite species they had always dismissed. Back on the human cruiser Horizon, Captain Ramirez gathered his officers. "Mission accomplished," he said simply. "We acted when necessary and we protected our people. That is all that matters." Lieutenant Miller nodded. "Do you think they understand now?" Ramirez shook his head. "Some may, some never will, but it doesn't matter. We don't act for their understanding. We act for our people." Across the colonies, humans celebrated quietly. There were no loud parades, no unnecessary displays. Just relief, gratitude, and a deep understanding that their patience had protected them and their strength had proven their worth. Emma Brooks wrote a final report documenting the success of the response. She made sure every detail was clear, every action recorded. This was not for pride. It was for history. It was for the council. And it was a warning to anyone who might underestimate humanity again. In the council chambers, delegates whispered in small groups. "They are not weak," one said. "They are dangerous." They are patient, and patience can be the deadliest weapon, another replied. John Carter returned to his quarters quietly. He removed his jacket and sat down. Lisa Morrow joined him, offering a cup of tea. They saw it, she said softly. They saw part of it, John replied. Patience is still our ally. We showed what humans can do when forced, but there is still much they do not understand. Outside, the galaxy moved on. Ships continued their courses, stars spun silently in the void, and humans prepared to rebuild what had been damaged. They had acted decisively and controlled, and the message was clear. Politeness and patience did not equal weakness. The Council had watched humans drop their polite restraint, and no one would ever underestimate them again. But humans themselves knew that restraint was still a choice. They had acted for protection, not for conquest. And as they rebuilt their colonies, they prepared quietly for the next challenge, knowing that the galaxy had finally begun to understand that patience was not weakness, and civility was not fear. The Varan sector was calm now. The raiders who had terrorized human colonies were gone, and the human fleet patrolled the borders quietly but firmly. There were no celebrations, no shouting, no unnecessary displays of power. The humans had acted decisively, yet with control. Every colony that had been threatened was safe, every freighter protected, and every citizen reassured. Captain Alex Ramirez stood on the deck of the cruiser Horizon, watching the stars. The lights of distant colonies twinkled softly, calm and secure. His crew moved around him, tending to ships, checking equipment, and preparing for the next patrol. The atmosphere was focused but relaxed. Humans had always valued preparation, and now, after the decisive response, they could return to careful observation. Captain, Lieutenant Jason Miller said, approaching him, "Do you think they finally understand us?" Ramirez shook his head slowly. "Some may, some never will, but understanding is not what matters. What matters is that our people are safe. The rest is just noise." Across the colonies, life returned to normal. Children played under the sun, families rebuilt homes and shops, and trade resumed on safe routes. People had witnessed the power humans could wield, yet no one feared unnecessary violence. Humanity had acted only to defend what was theirs. Every step had been calculated, every strike controlled, and every life considered. In the council chamber, whispers had grown louder. Delegates from many species were still trying to process what they had witnessed. A few older members leaned forward, talking in low tones. "They are not weak," said one, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 eyes. "They are disciplined, patient, and dangerous when pushed. They have controlled their strength for centuries," another replied. "And when they act, it is precise, purposeful, and overwhelming." John Carter stood before the council once again. This time there was no need to plead, no need to explain every attack. The council had seen it for themselves. Images of the human fleet in action, the captured raiders, and the safe colonies were displayed across the chamber. Every member could see the precision, the restraint, and the power of humanity. "Honorable members," John said calmly, "humanity does not seek war. We do not act out of anger or pride. We act to protect our people. Today, we have defended our colonies, restored our trade routes, and ensured the safety of our civilians. Let this serve as a demonstration. Humans endure, humans observe, and humans act when necessary. Our patience is not weakness, and our civility is not fear." The chamber was quiet. Some delegates were thoughtful, some uneasy. Few could find words to challenge what they had seen. The humans they had dismissed as polite and weak had revealed themselves as protectors, capable of both patience and decisive action. Outside the council chamber, Lisa Morrow stood beside John. "Do you think they truly understand now?" she asked softly. John smiled faintly. "Some may, others may never understand, but that is not important. We do not act for their understanding. We act for our people." Back at the colonies, Captain Ramirez met with local leaders to assess damage and begin repairs. Every human community had suffered, yet every community had survived. The attacks had failed to break their spirit. The raids had only strengthened their determination to protect each other. Emma Brooks worked late into the night, documenting every detail of the human response. She included the strategies used, the patterns of the raiders, and the results of every encounter. Her records would serve as history, as lessons for future generations, and as proof that human patience and planning could overcome threats without losing their values. "Do you ever get tired of all this?" Lisa asked her quietly. Emma shook her head. "No, it's important. People need to understand that restraint is not weakness. We have to remember what happened, or someone else might underestimate us in the future. Even the survivors of the raids felt a quiet pride. Families shared stories of bravery and calm under pressure. Children learned that patience and courage could coexist. Communities rebuilt together, sharing resources and support. Human resilience was more than survival. It was preparation, strength, and unity. In the council, debate continued, though the tone had shifted. Some species began to reevaluate their assumptions about humans. They are patient, but when pushed, they act decisively, a delegate noted. They are protectors, another added. They do not seek war, but they will defend their own with unmatched precision. John Carter returned to the council chambers one last time during this cycle. He spoke calmly, without anger or pride. Let this be a lesson. Humanity does not underestimate threats, and we do not act recklessly. We endure, we protect, and we respond with care and precision. Civility is our choice, patience is our strength, and our people are never to be harmed without consequence. Outside the chambers, humans began sharing relief supplies with nearby colonies, even those not under threat. They repaired stations, rebuilt trade routes, and offered medical care. The human fleet remained vigilant, but the focus was on rebuilding, not conquest. Every action reinforced the message. Humans were powerful, but not cruel. Captain Ramirez observed the fleet as it moved through the sector. Each ship was ready, yet none were aggressive without reason. Every pilot, crew member, and officer knew the balance between restraint and action. They had been patient for generations, and now they had acted decisively. Their people were safe, and their strength was clear. Back at the council, discussion turned from fear to respect. Humans were no longer seen as small and weak. They were a species to be taken seriously. Not only were they capable of diplomacy, but they could also act with overwhelming precision when their people were threatened. They are not what we thought, one delegate admitted. Their patience hides their strength. They value life, another added. And yet they will not tolerate harm to their own. That is a rare quality in the galaxy. John Carter left the council chamber quietly. Lisa followed, carrying the remaining reports. Outside, the sun of the human council station reflected off the metal hulls of ships in the distance. The fleet had done its duty. The colonies were safe. The council had witnessed humanity's power. "Do you think this changes anything?" Lisa asked. John looked out at the stars. "It changes everything. They will no longer underestimate us. But that does not change who we are. We are still humans. We choose civility. We choose patience. And when necessary, we act decisively. That is what makes us strong." Across the colonies, families returned to their routines. Children played under watchful eyes, workers repaired structures, and trade routes opened once again. Humanity had acted when pushed to the limit, but they had not lost themselves in anger. Their restraint had been deliberate, and their action had been precise. Captain Ramirez walked through a colony, observing repairs and speaking quietly with local leaders. Every human he met understood the same lesson. Patience could coexist with power, and civility could coexist with decisive strength. In the council, delegates finally began to speak openly about humanity with respect. What had been dismissed as weakness was now recognized as deliberate strength. Other species reconsidered their own assumptions, realizing that civility could mask power and patience could hide preparation. John Carter and Lisa Morrow returned to their quarters on the Human Council station. They did not celebrate with fanfare. They did not boast. Instead, they reflected quietly on what had been accomplished. Humanity had acted when it was necessary, protecting their people and demonstrating the truth. Restraint is not weakness. "Do you think they understand fully?" Lisa asked. John smiled softly. "Some will, some never will, but it does not matter. We act for our people, not for their understanding, and that is enough." The galaxy continued to turn. Stars burned brightly, ships traveled across space, and life went on in countless worlds. But humans had left a mark. They had proven that civility and patience could exist alongside strength and decisiveness. The Council had watched humans drop their polite restraint. They had seen a species that could endure insults, survive attacks, and act with unmatched precision. They had learned that patience could be the deadliest weapon, and civility could conceal immense power. In the quiet of their colonies, humans prepared for the future. They repaired what had been broken, strengthened their defenses, and ensured their people were safe. The galaxy had finally begun to understand. Humans were protectors, not conquerors, patient but not weak. And above it all, Captain Ramirez, John Carter, Lisa Morrow, Emma Brooks, and every human in the colonies knew the truth. Civility was not a limitation, patience was not fear, and humanity's strength was something no one would ever underestimate again. The stars stretched endlessly above, silent and infinite. Humanity had acted, humanity had endured, and humanity had survived. The Council and the galaxy would never forget the lesson. When humans drop their polite restraint, they do so with purpose, precision, and power beyond expectation. And humanity returned to its choice: patience, civility, and quiet vigilance, ready for whatever the galaxy would bring next.